So now, just playing around here, I want to talk about curvature to face. So we're going to make a 3D sketch, and then I'm going to make a spline inside 3D sketch, and I'm going to go from this edge to this edge. And now, here's something a lot of people don't know about, which is a great relation that I love to use. I click this spline, hold control, that edge, still holding control, that face. So I need 3 selections, and then you get equal curvature or tangency to face. So that's curvature to face or tangency to face. So if I click right there on tangency to face, now this spline is tangent to that face wherever I go along it, which is pretty great. So you can see how this would be a very useful tool. I'm going to do the same thing over here and say curvature to face. Right? So now I get a spline that is curvature to face and tangency to face. So C1 and C0 tangency, or I'm sorry, C1 and C2 tangency, depending on where I am, and I could do the same thing over here from this side to this side. Oops, you know what? I wanted to show something else. Go from here, and then actually get a point on that other line, and then go to there. Go. And now you can see how you could start creating an area where you can play around with some lines that would help construct surfaces. So it's cool relations that people don't always know about. Okay, so what I use for filled surfaces, this is actually an iron for like a snowboard, for putting wax on a snowboard, and I created it almost all with filled surfaces. So let's just take a look at that part real quick. Okay, cool. So now I want to take a look at how I made these faces right here. There's two separate faces. I'm going to get in here, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create this sketch on the front plane. I already have the front plane going right there. And it's going to be a 3-point spline. Alright, so now I can select this line, this edge, and this face, right? And say equal curvature, right? And now this one's, I'm glad you saw that, because sometimes they'll get down here, and I have to go up here, because I'm going to add a vertical relation, and if I added a vertical relation while I was pointing down, it would try and point it down. That's not what I want. So I get it close to what I want, and then I add that vertical relation. And now you can see that I can start playing around depending on where this point is and how I move this arrow right here. I get a different shape, and that's how I can start playing around with this. And once again, you'll notice that in order to create this surface area in here, I have to have a split edge right there, right? So I can once again go grab this my front plane here and make a split line with that face. Now I have the edges that I want, right? So now I can once again go to filled surface and grab this edge and this edge and this edge and this edge and this line, and it'll throw surface in there. It works, right? And now I can turn off optimize surface and apply a tangent to all edges, right? And it looks pretty good, right? It works, but we end up with this bulge up right here, right? And what we really want is we want it smoothly to come in like this. So this isn't exactly what we want, but we can get it there. Just need to use that option we had before of I create this 3D sketch, 3D spline, and I'm going to go from that line to this face, right? And now I can go line, hold control, edge, grab the wrong one, that's okay. Hold control, line, edge, face, and now I can say curvature to face, right? And then this one, remember it's a 3D sketch, so I can't say like horizontal, I need to figure out where I am. So I'm going to say in the Z direction, so along the Z, right? And then that kind of gives us where we want to go with this. So I can move it and get exactly where I want it. and that's kind of what we want the shape of this thing to look like, right? So now, if I get out of this sketch, this is how you exit a 3D sketch, right? So now if I get out of that sketch and I come back in here to filled surface, I grab this edge and this edge and this edge and this edge and that line, uncheck optimize, go to tangent, and we still have the same shape we had before, but we want this line to line up. We want it to go to that line, and that's why we have this extra box here, constraint curves, right? We go into constraint curves, and I grab this line, and now see the surface conformed to that line. So now it's tangent to all these edges, and it meets up with that line, and that's exactly what we want. Right? Pretty cool. So now, using the same methodology, I come over here and say 3D sketch, 3D spline, and I want to go from right there to right there. And again, I'm going to grab line, control, edge, control, face, and I'll say tangency to face, and grab this guy, and I'm going to make him along the Z, just like the other side, right? And now I can grab, I already have a plane here, I believe it's plane 6, and I want to create a sketch on that plane. There we go. So now I'm sketching on plane 6. Alright, and I am going to create a spline. That point there to there. Notice how I just get it close because I don't know exactly where it is. I'm on a 2D plane in a 3D world, so I got to use a Pierce relation. So I just get it kind of close, and then I use a Pierce relation, and then everything lines up being where I want it to be. Now I'm going to select the spline, the edge, the face, and say tangent to face. And you're going to say, couldn't that have just been a horizontal relation? And I'm going to say, yeah, you know what, it could, because this is an extruded face and it's flat. Okay, now I'm going to grab this and say vertical, right? And now everything's lined up like I want. And exit that sketch and go to filled surface and grab this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge, and it goes contact. I'm going to not optimize the surface, and I'm going to say curvature to all faces, and it gets in there, which is good. And now I go to constraint curve, and I can add both of these guys. And it chugs along, and it makes it happen, and there you have it. All right. Fill both those in. Now you can always go back. Obviously this isn't exactly right. There's going to be some imperfections here, which, you know, that's why I had to play around with it for a little while. You can play around with it by like going back in and saying, oh, I want to you know, edit that a little bit. You end up with a different surface. So it'll chug along. Hopefully I didn't just freeze it. So now you can see how, you know, just by moving that, having instant 3D on, I created this like kind of bulge there, right? So you can go play with it after the fact, right? So that's pretty cool.